Hey everybody, my name's Jeff Nikoloff. I'm happy to be joining you here today. I'm actually finishing up the 20th year of my career in technology. Very happy to have been around that long, but I realize it makes me a little bit of a gray beard. I've spent time at companies like Amazon. I had a long career in consulting, working with Fortune 500, big and small companies alike. Most recently, I was the director of engineering at PayPal, and I'm very happy to be joining you today as a representative for Gremlin. I'm a big believer in our mission to make a more reliable internet, and it really, really resonates with me because my time in my career working with all those different customers, one thing has just become clear, and that everybody cares about the reliability of their systems, and everyone's worried about the reliability of their systems, and everybody's worried about rate of change and impact that has the reliability on their systems. And good news, everything's changing all the time, especially in industry and solutions and other things that we can use to help build more reliable systems. But it's actually getting harder than ever to get it right. And there's three key challenges here. One, a lot of us are working for organizations that have multi-generational software, right? There's a lot of things that have happened along the way, whether our company is 10, 15, 20, or older than that. We've all been adapting to changing business conditions that require different changes in our data, changes to our software, changes to how we operate it, and changes to what our operations look like, the scale of those operations. It's changing all the time. And as those organizations move and adopt tools that are propagating the DevOps space, or whether we have an internal service platforms team, things like that, there's a high degree of, I call it software archaeology that we have to do. We're touching systems that we probably haven't touched in years, in the best cases. But we need to make sure that as we migrate, whether or not you're taking a lift and shift pattern, or whether you're modernizing those applications as you go forward, you have to make sure that they continue to operate the way that they did in a reliable way. And that's a big challenge, especially as we're going faster and faster all the time. Going fast means when we want to go fast, we don't usually say explicitly, we'd like to do that without breaking things. But I think that's pretty much implied. And so we have to ask ourselves, okay, how can we actually do that? So we bring in specialists, think groups like SRE teams, group like DevOps teams that are there to master tooling, and people that can watch this very specific aspect of our business and operations. But usually those teams have a very difficult time understanding the software that they're operating in production with depth. They know what up looks like, and they generally can reason about infrastructure concerns or network topologies. They can work closely with security teams to make sure that things are able to work, but understanding the software at depth is very, very difficult, right? That's why we have application owning teams in a lot of cases. Another bit is, generally speaking, our pace of innovation outpaces our ability to anticipate breakage. And I posit that a lot of the SRE best practices that we see in the Google SRE book, they're actually too late. They're retrospective, where they're monitoring lagging metrics, and they can't really tell you much about how your system is going to perform today. So if we have an incident and we go ahead and patch that, and we ship a fix for it, can we actually say whether or not, has it changed in some other way? Now we have to wait to find out, are there going to be future incidents related to this change that we made, right? It's all retrospective. They're proxy metrics for something greater. And this is one of those great challenges. We're doing more business than ever. Our internal business processes are more dependent on our software systems and our 24/7 operations, and that's great. It's empowering for the whole business. But that also means that our downtime is way more expensive than ever. both in terms of opportunity cost, failed customer interactions, but also internal waiting. Like who really enjoys when the build is broken and now we can't get things done, right? Like there's a massive cost to unreliability for systems of all types. And so, we need something we need something greater to help us minimize that stuff. And I'm not here to talk to you about specific tooling or a specific narrow practice. Like a couple years ago, I would have been here talking to you about chaos engineering, but I think that that's a very specific tool for a very specific purpose that enables you to do some great stuff. But ultimately, it's just one more tool and in your toolbox. And we've already got a lot of tools. This whole expo center is full of great tools, right? But what we really need, if you want to impact change at scale as your organization all uplifts and upskills and adopts new tooling, you actually need a new strategy. So there's 3 specific strategic components to adopting a strategy for reliability. The first and foremost, you have to measure what matters, right? If reliability matters to you in your organization, you have to begin by measuring it, and measuring it in a way that you can understand. It isn't just running one kind of test at a point in time and saying, yep, I tested that if this host goes away, the other hosts in my cluster can tolerate that. You need a way to understand different failures across your organization and to recognize when you do have common failure modes that everyone should be able to benefit from validating, right? So first and foremost, you have to test it. You have to test it comprehensively, and the output of that needs to be something that people can understand. A number would be great, some type of baseline metric that allows you to understand and communicate risk for reliability-related events across your application fleet. So step 1, you have to establish a baseline. Step 2, once you have a baseline and you have understanding about where your relative risk spikes are, begin to remediate those things. Actually put in concerted effort and then retest, rebaseline, measure your improvement, and do that before waiting for the next incident, right? Prove the value of your work before there's a real issue that impacts your customers or that impacts your internal organization. And step 3, automate that process. Don't just test once at one point in time, right? Don't figure out those things that you should be testing regularly across your fleet. Test them regularly. It doesn't have to be every time you make every single change, but test them with some reasonable periodicity. Once a day, once a week. Get into that thing so that you can begin to see time series data for how your system changes your reliability posture over time. And so, if you walk away with nothing else from this talk, it's really those 3 points. I just want you to go home and say, I need a strategy, okay? We spent a lot of time thinking about this at Gremlin, and we do think that if you understand what you need to do in order to accomplish a mission of building more reliable systems, that you'll end up building or thinking about or implementing a system which is exactly like our new reliability management product. So all 3 of those things, the general strategy, understanding what tests you should be running regularly, those common, that like 80% of the things that could go wrong, we kind of already know what those are, right? A host going down, a process runs out of memory, those types of transient failures. Those are pretty easy to anticipate. And so I don't want to stand up here and ask you to go home and think about those things for yourself and try to figure out how to implement it yourself. We've already done it. It's pretty straightforward, right? And once you have that, you could begin to focus on what makes your system different. What makes your processes and your services and your systems different than your competitors? What makes your internal processes and tooling different? Because they're all different, right? And focus on those things that make you special, not the things that everyone knows we all have to test with regularity, right? And without having to say, I need to build my own program, internal program for collecting and collating that data. Gremlin our Gremlin's reliability management product brings all that together in a single pane of glass, like what you see here. A list of services, scores for each of those services, common scoring pattern, and quickly and easily digestible. Breaking the score down a little bit more, it's really what you'd expect to see. And for those of us who have worked in reliability roles, these are, there's nothing particularly surprising in what you'd test, right? We're going to look for host and zonal failures. We're going to look for, local resource memory or resource exhaustion issues. We're going to ask ourselves what happens when there's a network partition and a network dependency goes away, right? Those, relatively boring things that it would be great to be able to measure all the time and regularly without putting a whole lot of, SRE-focused expert effort into probing that, right? That's somewhat boring work. I would rather those people with that skill set to be able to go out and probe for new interesting failure modes in their stack, to spend their time doing that exploration, right? To go find those things that really are bespoke and special about your failure modes. So in short, we're standardizing our scoring. We're standardizing like the categories and weighting of those scores so that you don't have to go off and invent that on your own. Because again, as long as it's consistent within your organization and it's consistent over time, it will help you understand your system better. And again, we're here to help you focus on the things that make your business different. And that's your services, the way that you define your health and your signals, and the way that your organization defines accountability for reliability within your organization. That's all I've got. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions or they want to talk more, I'll hang out around here a little bit, but the Gremlin booth is just right on the other side of the AWS merch store, so hope to see you there. Thanks.